Okay, well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon or good morning if you're in a different time zone. And welcome to our Tuesday Universal Peace Federation webinar series. Today's program is hosted by the International Association for Peace and Economic Development, one of the 8 associations under the UPF USA umbrella. And my name is Alan Jessen. I'll be your host today. For the sake of our new guests who may be joining us, UPF was co-founded in 2005 by the late Reverend Sun Myung Moon and his wife, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, and is a 501c3 NGO with general consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. We're an international and interreligious network of individuals and organizations, including representatives from religion, government, civil society, and the private sector, dedicated to achieving world peace on the foundation of mutual prosperity, interdependence, and universally shared values. So thank you for joining us today. As you may know, IAED held an online conference last September 26 and 27 on Headwing Economics, part of our effort to explore the Headwing framework. And one of the topics was a presentation on the genius of Louis Kelso, a new paradigm for financing a just free market system, which was presented by Ms. Dawn Brohan, one of our speakers today. Today's program then is a follow-up to that topic, and it's entitled Headwing Economics and Justice University, Forging a Partnership to Build an Economy for Peace, Shared Prosperity, and Freedom. The speakers will share the vision for creating Justice University, which exists in person, but also now as a free 10-week online course on the principles of the Just Third Way and Kelso's new paradigm, which can be said to be, in my opinion, a critique and counterproposal to traditional economic theories with the potential to realize an economy of mutual prosperity that works for everyone. And if I may indulge you all for just a few minutes, I'd like to just add a few introductory remarks of my own before introducing today's speakers. First, I'm a graduate of Justice University course, which we'll be talking about today. I received my certification in 2021. One of my classmates was Mark Plotkin, who will be sharing his thoughts shortly. And the class content opened my eyes and answered many questions, giving me a hopeful vision for the future. So if you're inclined to take it, I'm sure it will do the same for you. And the best part is you don't have to be an economist or to benefit from it, to enjoy it, and to learn from the concepts presented. There are 2 points I'd just like to make. Number one, you'll notice in the title the word partnership. I truly believe that CESJ and the Universal Peace Federation, both here and internationally, have a divine destiny of working together. And one piece of evidence I'd like to share is that the president of CESJ is Norm Kurland, at age 94, still going strong. God bless you, Norm. And Norm was invited to Korea in 1999 for the World Culture and Sports Festival to speak at a special convocation on family ethics and world peace. He was there with another presenter, Professor Robert Ashford, who we've had on this program as well. His talk was entitled, A New Paradigm for Economic Empowerment of the Family in the 21st Century. It was a brilliant discussion, and if you're interested, we'll put that link in the chat. It's there on the CESJ website. Antonio Betancourt was the moderator of that panel and the person who invited them, and it was a supporter of CESJ. I'm also proud to say that in 2023, we appointed Norm as an ambassador for peace at the Washington Times building. Second point is that in 2021, the Professors World Peace Academy, PWPA, published a book on the 3 pillars of the Universal Peace Federation as outlined by the founder, Reverend Moon. These are interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. And in that book, there are 6 essays relating to economics. And one of the conclusions stated clearly, and actually more than one essay, was that no matter how idealistic the logic of unification thought may be, The reality is, and I quote, that it will continue to remain as an unrealizable discourse if it is not premised on feasible policy proposals, law enactments, and administrative regulations. It goes on and concludes by saying that, quote, for the economic system of the principle of interdependence to win recognition as a possible and realistic alternative economic system, and I might just put in there myself, that's what we're trying to do with Headwing Economic Framework. As a possible alternative economic system, interdisciplinarity and collaboration should be carried out to provide the theoretical basis for presenting a fresh discourse on modern economic theory and economic systems. I am personally convinced that over my decades of study that the ideas of Louis Kelso, which are taught in the 10-week Justice University course, are exactly that. A fresh discourse on modern economics and a powerful new paradigm that is waiting to be unlocked. I'm very pleased that with this partnership, Justice University can be offered to all in our unification community and as well as all fellow travelers for study and collaboration. With that, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. And as a reminder, this program is being streamed live and will be recorded and available in our IAED archives of past programs at us.upf.org. I'm looking forward to some discussion, and you may put your questions in the chat. So our first speaker for today is Dawn K. Broham. She is a co-founder and executive committee member and director of communications for the Center for Economic and Social Justice, CESJ, which was established in 1984. She has written articles, co-authored books, and organized forums on economic democratization, the just third way, and justice-based management. Ms. Brohan co-founded, manages, and teaches in the CESJ's Justice University and Global Internship and Fellowship programs. Her two most recent books are Economic Personalism 2020. And Dawn, please, the floor is yours to give us your brief introductory comments. Oh, I'm sorry, there's another. The other book was The Greater Reset 2022, co-authored with CSJ's Director of Research, Michael Grady. Dawn, the floor is yours.
Let me start by saying what Alan said. That was one of the most beautifully stated testimonials of what our common goals are, our common mission to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest period of time with no ecological offense or to the harm of any human being. So I would like to thank Alan Jessen and Roger Weatherall and the IAED for giving us this opportunity to introduce this unique institution we call Justice University. And I'm just going to make a few remarks as one of the co-founders of Justice University, which was an idea that sprung from the head of Norman Kurland, who happens to be my father, sitting around a table with the head of the Universal Peacemakers Foundation, which was founded by a CESJ member, Minister Robert Brantley. And it really came out of the sense there is a vacuum in academia, and that is nowhere at any level of education is being taught a paradigm which it promotes the dignity, empowerment, freedom, full development of each human being from the day they're born until the day they die, or teaches a system by which our institutions, particularly our money system and our credit system, can be retooled so that the means to shape the future, beginning with the economy and technologies, that this does not become the province of a few or the government, but becomes a practical way of financing sustainable private sector growth, but connecting every human being to this new system of money that will produce goods and services for the global marketplace, but also empower each of us economically, because without economic power and without economic democracy, we cannot have a true and functioning political democracy. So that essentially, my father said, and he's a lawyer who was in the law and economics program at the University of Chicago. He says quite frequently they teach law in the law schools, in the best law schools, but they don't teach justice. So this is what our institution, which is largely online, we have teachers who speak to small groups, seminars, but also, as will be described later by Mark Plotkin and Dave Hamill, we have also launched an online self-paced course so that anyone around the world can be introduced to the ideas of Louis Kelso writings and writings of others who describe this new paradigm. So with that, I think we would all agree that we need a system that's based on moral principles and sound free market, private property economics that will promote the dignity, empowerment, equal opportunity, and full development of each and every person wherever they may live. So with that, I will leave the details to my colleagues, Mark Plotkin and Dave Hamill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don. That was excellent. Good introduction. And yeah, let's bring up Mark Plotkin to share his thoughts. And I just felt it was important, especially to let Mark and Dave, volunteers, to share their personal stories a little bit, how they found and got connected to CSJ and what drives them forward. Because it's a movement, and we all are involved in a movement to bring about a better world of world peace. So Mark Plotkin is a retired civil rights attorney with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, where he had a 38-year career enforcing the nation's laws against discrimination in employment. As a technical advisor, he provided training and assistance to the civil rights offices of federal agencies as to how they could improve the quality of their EEO programs. Mark has been a volunteer with CESJ since 2020 and was elected to CESJ's board of directors in 2025. Congratulations, Mark. His work with CSJ focuses on educating people about the teachings of Louis Kelso and other proponents of economic justice. Toward that end, he helped develop the online version of CESJ's Justice University, a 10-week introductory course with the goal of creating curricula for all levels of education, from elementary school through graduate studies. Mark, the floor is yours. You can share your story with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you to this prestigious organization for allowing me to speak. Okay. I came to CESJ, or the ideas of Louis Kelso, from the perspective of technology policy. And having done graduate work many years ago in international trade and technology, I was convinced that technological innovation alone was enough to solve every possible problem that humanity is facing. I remember I started using the internet in 1995, which, if you can believe it, is a whole generation ago. And at the time, and I'll confess to you all that I was as naive as everybody else when I believed that that it was going to democratize the planet, that the technologies coming down the pike would allow every person to find their niche, earn their own living, and live the lives they want to live. That's not quite what happened, is it? What do we have today? A few high-tech platforms gaining dominance, crowding everyone else out, and potentially driving massive job losses, particularly in the white-collar ranks, thanks to AI. And I just want to take a minute to play a clip for you from a noted economist from the University of Michigan named Justin Wolfers. So if you'll just allow me, I'm going to put my share screen on. Okay, and hopefully you all can see that. And so let me introduce Mr. Wolfers, Dr. Wolfers, I should say. Oh.
Every previous technological revolution. What's so interesting about this is almost every previous technological revolution, the plow, the steam engine, electricity, has been technology coming in and doing the work of brawn, of muscle. And so the people who lost out of those previous revolutions were basically those who had brawn, big buffy blokes. I don't know whether you're willing to admit this, but that's not guys like you and me, Ali. What's different this time is the robots are doing cognitive work. So that means the folks they're coming for this time are white-collar workers. So it's an old script, and to my blue-collar friends, you might say to those of us in the white-collar world, welcome to what I've lived through for the past 40 years, because folks like you and I, Ali, what is it we're good at? We're good at reading a lot of stuff and turning it into straightforward English. What's AI good at? Reading a lot of stuff and turning it into straightforward English. And so many of our viewers are in the same situation that you and I are. We feel like Detroit auto workers in the 1970s.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we get the policy response right this time, not because it's white-collar workers this time, but because we ought to learn from history.
So we can all see that it's getting pretty serious now. Now, in his book, The Capitalist Manifesto, Louis Kelso predicted this. He wrote extensively about it 50 years, almost 70 years ago. But what he was talking about, what he referred to as mechanical labor, was what Dr. Wolfers was referring to as brawn. Okay? And my own thoughts about why Louis Kelso was never taken seriously was because of all the almost an article of faith. The technology creates more jobs than it destroys. But we're coming face to face against that right now. So the questions I was asking myself were, what were the policies in place that allow this to happen? And what policies are needed to reverse those trends? So in 2020, I found the book on binary economics by Robert Ashford and Rodney Shakespeare. And needless to say, I was hooked. I mean, I read this, and from the moment that I started grasping the ideas, I just had this intuitive sense that it was right. I didn't have to struggle with the prevailing schools of economic thought. For me, it all boils down to the fact that scarcity is not inevitable. Technological innovation does not necessarily have to lead to a massive loss in livelihood. And I think that once the just third way paradigm is widely understood, people will not only no longer be afraid of technological advances, they'll actually welcome those advances once they realize that they can earn a living as owners of the capital needed to produce them. Okay, so I'm very big into continuing my education through online platforms like edX and Coursera. So the first thing I did was I wanted to see if there was a course on this that was available on those platforms. So I emailed Robert Ashford, and he emailed me back asking me to give him a call. I did, and we had a discussion. And as soon as he got a sense of what I was looking for and where I wanted to go, he referred me to CESJ. So in turn, I go to CESJ's website. I find Justice University. I see the course, and there it was. So I called Dawn, and she'll tell you, I called Dawn and practically begged her to let me enroll in the class. So I took the course and got my certification along with Alan in 2021. And the first project I wanted to work on was to actually draft the legislative text for the Economic Democracy Act, which CESJ is promoting. You know, me being a lawyer, I mean, that's one of the things that lawyers do. But then after getting into this project and even taking a course on legislative drafting, I realized I had to abandon it because it was beyond my capabilities. Legislative drafting is a highly specialized skill, and I just don't have that skill. So I decided to approach the just third way from the perspective of a scholar. So and so in working with CESJ, I have several goals in mind. I have an institutional goal, which is that in working with CESJ, my institutional goal in working with CESJ is to help lay the foundation for the spread of the just third way by presenting a sound conceptual framework that is not only theoretically consistent and practical, but can serve as the basis for organizing institutional reform. Now, I also have a personal goal, and that is to attain the knowledge equivalent of a PhD in the just third way, emphasizing the appropriate balance between theory and practical application. Now, the great thing about a law degree, aside from preparing you for the bar exam and law practice, is that a law degree is a generalist PhD. So during my career with EEOC, I had the opportunity to do an extensive amount of research, analysis, writing, and training. And those are all tasks that I've gotten good at over the years and tasks that I love to do. So it was really a natural progression to work on curriculum development for Justice University. So we had the Zoom course, which was online but live. So we really didn't have any other options at the time. So I suggested that I would like to help create an online self-paced version of the certification course, so that more people could complete it on their own without the need for live teachers. I think, Dave, we worked on this project for about a year and a half. It was myself, Dave, and several others. And what was unique about our efforts in this regard was that this marked the first time that we actually used artificial intelligence to develop course materials. And so we used AI for the quizzes. So what I'm going to do now, Dave, are you there?
Yes, sounding good, Mark.
I am going
Mark
to.
has really done a lot, and I know he's going to do more because he's even developing advanced course. So after you guys do this one, if you want to, there may be another one.
Dave, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to bring up
Mark, would you like me to let Dave share a little bit on his background first, and then you guys can?
Be better.
Okay, why don't we let me introduce Dave Hamill, and you can share a little bit, Dave.
Thank you.
And then together you guys can, explain a little bit about the course. So Dave Hamill is a founding owner of STO Group, Inc., which stands for Excellent Service Through Employee Ownership in Atlanta, Georgia. Dave's a member of the Libertarian Party, has campaigned for national and local candidates, and traveled the country as a ballot access petitioner and worked as a professional fundraiser. He is a volunteer project manager with CESJ, founding the Economic Democracy Act Network, a 501c4 organization, to create mass awareness of the need for economic democracy. In addition, he helped in development of the online Justice University's self-paced course. Dave is a lifetime Southerner. He studied business at Louisiana State University and has worked in sales, petroleum transportation, and price risk management as a Series 3 licensed broker. And I'm not sure what you're talking about with that, Dave, but the floor is yours to share with us your background and interest and thoughts.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm what they call a striped collar entrepreneur. And part of that business was dealing with chemicals and petroleum. And for a while, I was actually involved with hedging the price of the product, which required me to get a Series 3 futures broker license. And that's the kind of thing that allows you to buy and sell like crude oil futures and gasoline futures and things like that. So it was very educational. But I noticed in all of my ventures, there was a time when it seems like business was always great. And there were times when I was doing the same thing I had always done and couldn't seem to turn a profit. So I started asking around, what was going on. People said, oh, it's the business cycle. It's boom and bust. So I decided to do some research on that because it was greatly affecting my happiness and my level of success, and relationship with my wife, for that matter. So it was very important to figure out why we kept having these, up times, down times. And sure enough, I did some research and I discovered that we have a flawed money system, and that the concept of a business cycle is taken as a given, that it just has to happen. But Louis Kelso has a theory that says it doesn't have to happen. And I found out about his theory because in my research, I read a book called The Secrets of the Temple by William Grider, which was a book detailing how the Federal Reserve works and why the money is created for frivolous purposes such as government waste, speculation, consumer spending, and a little bit of good things, which is business transactions. But I found out in his book, he had a little paragraph saying there are other theories about ways to reform things. Louis Kelso has one of those theories, but so far it hasn't gained much traction. But I said, I don't care whether it has traction or not. I want to know what should be. And sure enough, I looked into it and I found CESJ, and I ended up joining CESJ, and I'm glad I did. I met people like Mark and a volunteer that helped us with Justice University that we haven't mentioned, a guy named Ian City. And Ian was my co-website volunteer, and he and I kind of did the website part of the self-paced course. And I think Mark's going to get into that. So that's my story. So go ahead, Mark.
All right. Let me go back to sharing.
Maybe you can bring the two of them on the screen there, and they'll take us through Justice University.
Okay. So, okay, let me, Okay, so there are, I don't know if you can't really, you can't see the left side. Maybe I can, hang on, let's see if this works. Yep, okay, good. All right, so as the course is structured now, there are 10 sessions, and between those 10 sessions, they cover the entire gamut of the basic principles of the just third way. So just, we first two sessions focus on foundational definitions. Then we get into the principles of justice as enunciated by Father William Ferree, who was one of CESJ's co-founders. The basic concepts of binary economics, and then practical applications of economic personalism, and extensive coverage of the Economic Democracy Act, justice-based leadership, which is everything else is on the pretty much deals with the macro policy issues. But when we talk about justice-based leadership, we're talking at the level of the firm, micro, at the micro level. And then some various...
How to run a company, basically.
Basically, how to run a company as when the employees are owners. Okay. Various solutions to problems. And one in particular I'd like to mention is, what Norm coined as the Abraham Federation, not the Abraham Accords, but the Abraham Federation, which envisioned economic democracy in the Middle East, particularly in the in the land that's biblically referred to as Judea and Samaria. Okay, and then the last session is a chance for feedback. What we do in the live course is that each of us, and Alan remembers as well, we had to give a 10-minute oral presentation describing how we could use the principles of the just third way to analyze and resolve a particular problem facing society.
And
So,
Mark, if you want me to, I'll just mention this is accessible for free to anyone. If you will write this down, for those of you who are on the call, it's justiceuniversity.org. So that's just spell out the words justice and university with no spaces.org. And this is what you will actually see when you sign up. Each session has a course page like this that has a video, which is basically Dawn and Mike and Norm giving a lecture for each session. And then after you watch that, you can take the little quiz, which is right below that video. And there's also PDFs of the material for those of you who learn better through reading. So it's all right there. It's all free, and we really need people to do it. We, are having a hard time getting the word out that it's available and, getting people to do it. So that's one of our main reasons for having this, is an opportunity to tell a few more people about it, and hope that you will also tell people you know about it.
okay, and I think Dave mentioned that it's completely free of charge, and it's completely integrated. That everything you need to complete the course is right here. So I'd like to finish this. I'd like to finish this talk by just trying to answer the question why the world needs Justice University. And I think you got a sense of that from what Professor Wolfers was warning about in terms of artificial intelligence coming for white-collar jobs. But it's more than that. And so let me read to you. This is from the Justice University pamphlet that you can find on the website itself. I want to read to you the first two paragraphs, which says it far better than I could. As evidenced by growing divisions and conflicts among people today, leaders and citizens around the world lack a coherent body of definitions, principles, and theories for understanding and implementing social and economic justice. Without a universal, unifying, and practical paradigm to guide them, how can communities, nations, and the world ever hope to achieve peace, freedom, prosperity, and empowerment for every citizen? Most institutions, including academia, accept as a given the wage welfare systems of capitalism, socialism, and their myriad hybrids, ignoring the fact that all of these systems inevitably lead to one result: concentration of ownership, which means concentration of wealth, and concentration of power, and limitation of opportunities for everybody else. So all of that is concentrated in a tiny economic or political elite. So in common, the prevailing paradigms which exist now, those that are taught by academia, view human labor as the only way most people can participate in the economic process and generate an income. So now, in terms of how Justice University came into being to tackle those problems directly, in terms of the direction of Justice University's evolution, our aim, and we say this as a custodian of the Just Third Way movement, is to make this knowledge of the Just Third Way accessible to people at all levels of education, from elementary through graduate school. Just to let you know, we're already working with a university, an accredited university in Chandler, Arizona, to develop an undergraduate version of the course for which college credit can be awarded. And we plan to work with professional educators in primary and secondary curriculum development. So to sum up, moving forward, we want Justice University to serve as a public policy incubator that educates policymakers, business leaders, academia, the media, and the public on on the finance and ownership patterns that can lead us out of the oligarchic economy in which we now find ourselves. That offers a free enterprise and private property approach to sustainable growth that closes the wealth, opportunity, and power gaps that are now prevalent under the current paradigm. That introduces innovative social systems that link economic justice to sustainable growth in ways that allow every citizen to participate in the economy as an owner of productive capital. That promotes ownership cultures within enterprises, communities, and societies. That leads to viable ways of revitalizing poverty-stricken urban and rural communities. And overall, we want to play a role in creating public policies that end poverty, racism, war, and environmental degradation. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you both. Excellent. I think our audience gained a good handle on some of that. You can certainly put some questions in the chat for our presenters. But before that, let me just ask this one question of the three of you, and maybe Dawn, you can say a few words. What would you say are the takeaways that you would like people to get from this course, knowing that it's a varied population of people. Not everyone's a passionate economist, of course. But what are the takeaways you would hope they would gain? Dawn, yeah, go ahead. Unmute, please.
Sorry. As one of the designers of the Justice University core curriculum, I developed a simple way for me to remember really the basic framework of the just third way as a paradigm. And what we hope is that people who take this course will have learned and understood and are able to figure out ways to apply these basic principles to solving problems, both in their immediate environment and globally, nationally and globally. And to sum it up simply, we start, I call this the 1, 2, 3, 4. One is that we start with the human person as the basis of all social institutions and systems, rather than an elite or rather than the government. So we call ourselves, or the paradigm, the just third way, as an alternative to monopolistic capitalism on the one hand and collectivist socialism or communism on the other, which do not acknowledge and protect and promote the rights and access to equal opportunity for every individual. So this is, in a sense, when Mark mentioned some of the ideas of one of our co-founders, Father Ferri, he was a scholar in the area of social justice, which is, in a sense, the overarching concept of how each of us relates to our social institutions. Louis Kelso, what we would want people to come away with also is his understanding of how the results of our actions or our social policies change dramatically if we can shift from thinking that it's labor alone that is the way most people will earn an income, and if they don't, they get welfare assistance. But to see there are two ways that each of us can contribute to the economy as producers. And this is even infants. And you go, how could a baby be a producer? If they own capital, and in the case of an infant, someone there to serve as a trustee, if you own capital that produces an income for you, then, or is part of producing goods and services, that becomes a way that you have the income to consume that is yours and not coming from someone else or the government. So there are two ways, and that is what Kelso called binary economics. So that's number two, that labor and capital both produce goods and services, but each of us must own capital, and to the extent we can provide labor that is of value on the market, we should have equal opportunity to offer that. 3, and this is, I think, one of Kelso's most profound contributions, and this was, I would say, developed and organized in connection with his co-author, Mortimer Adler, who was a famous Aristotelian philosopher. And that is the principles of economic justice organized in a system, meaning you have an input principle, an outtake principle, and a feedback or balancing principle. And I won't go into each of these, but the first has to do with participation. So we call it participative justice. And in the economics, that is the equal opportunity to participate both through one's labor, to the extent that's needed, and the contributions of one's capital ownership. So that can include owning shares in a company that uses AI and robotics. You may not have a job, there may be very few workers, but as long as citizens can own shares in those companies, that is a new source of income. And you let the robots do the brawn, the muscle work, or even other forms. So you have principle of participation, principle of distribution, and that is a private property concept that you are rewarded based on your contributions. So then if the system goes out of whack, you have this third principle, the feedback and corrective principle, which we adjusted from Kelso's original concept of limitation to the principle of social justice. So we don't want to get too much in the weeds, but that is number 3. 4 are the basic pillars of a just free market economy, and that is free and open markets for determining just prices, wages, and profits, private property rights, which is the right of an owner to the full fruits and control over what you own. The third is limited economic power of the government, of the state. It should be there to make sure there's a level playing field and to make sure that no one is taking advantage of anyone else. But essentially, government should not own anything, ideally. And the fourth is the missing pillar, and that is what the reason for Justice University is the equal human right to own capital ownership and have equal access to the means to acquire future capital and pay for the capital out of the earnings of the capital. So that is what Kelso brings, is a moral framework, but also a practical way of accomplishing this. And it's through the methods of finance and ultimately how we set up our money system so that we don't enslave the future to past accumulations of wealth and income, but we can use the money creation system, if we understand money properly, to open up equal opportunity to become an owner to everyone without taking anything away with current owners. So in that, we have our focus is in Justice University. The mechanism of change, one is education. So that is the purpose of Justice University. But also we look at institutions like the monetary system, the tax system, technology, and politics or government. Those are key leverage mechanisms for changing systems. And so we hope that when you go through this course, you'll be exposed to the basic principles, how they fit together in an organized system, the theory of the system, also how you can apply these in a practical way. One was an invention of Louis Kelso, the employee stock ownership plan. And then what kind of legislation would you need to transform the system? So anyways, that's a somewhat long-winded way. Yes, say what the takeaway is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a couple questions. They're kind of related, and maybe Dave, are you there, Dave, still? He said he had a little difficulty. If not, maybe Mark, you can. The question is, how is this different? And I think these are typical questions that someone has when they first learn about this. How is this different from simply owning shares in companies through stock market or through an employee stock purchase program?
Okay, well, I think and Dawn, you can correct me on this, but I think a large part of it is the collateral requirement. They're going to have like when an employee buys stocks, or let's say in a 401, invests in a 401k, they have to put away a part of their salary to join the plan and pay for the acquisitions. Okay, with the Just Third Way, employees don't have to spend a penny of their own money. Rather, they would be paid the loan, if you will, the plan would be repaid out of future earnings that the capital is expected to produce. Dawn, have I covered it all?
Yes, actually, you're describing the way the ESOP works, Employee Stock Ownership Plan, which allows all the employees of a company to borrow through this trust sufficient funds to buy the shares of the company and pay off the loan with the future profits. I think the question, what I heard was, what is the difference between what's proposed under the Economic Democracy Act and buying shares on the stock market or through employee stock purchase plans? And I think, Mark, what you pointed to is the case where people have to accumulate savings. In other words, not consume a portion of their income in order to buy shares, for example, in their company. So that is very difficult for people who are living hand to mouth or paycheck to paycheck. The other is the difference between what we're talking about, newly issued shares, versus what you purchase on the stock market, which are already existing shares being traded around. So these are what we would call secondary shares, and not the primary issuances representing new growth, that you're going to buy a share in this or help the company get the money to buy the capital to grow. So this is one of the most controversial and important points of Kelso, is that if we want to change the future, we have to have a money system that does not rely on this notion of past savings, or if you have money, you can get more money. If you don't have money, it's very hard to get, for example, a business loan. So we're looking at future savings. Kelso's idea was using, it's really standard banking approaches, but it's not called that, future savings. It's just future profits used to pay off loans to purchase capital. So if we start looking at this notion of future savings as the basis for growing a new economy and bringing in, virtually every citizen into ownership of this growth, you can only do that with a system that's not reliant on the savings of the rich or the government printing up phony money.
There's a question that relates to that up here, Dawn. It says, are there ways to expand private ownership of capital to people at the ground level of employment? Hotel maids, cashiers, McDonald's workers. What if they could receive a small piece of stock in their company as well as their wages? Could this transform their happiness?
Well, this is interesting. And there we're talking about people owning shares in the companies they work for, which all the studies that have been done show that there is a net positive where you have this along with other features of a participatory work culture. What we're talking about with the Economic Democracy Act, which goes beyond ESOP, and my father worked with Louis Kelso for many years and helped get laws passed by the Congress to enable workers of companies to have access to the money, the borrowing to acquire their company, the shares of their company. But as Kelso points out, we have to look beyond just workers in corporations, because most of the population do not work in corporations. So how do you connect the people who are working as in hotels or working in restaurants or working out in the fields, how do we connect them to capital ownership? And it's through this the same logic of how you get money to individuals so that they can invest in newly issued shares and acquire, by paying off the loans, acquire those shares outright. Now, this will take a system which can help determine whether stocks should even be sold, and whether these are good investments. And you would need advisors to help most people. But the idea is, once a business knows that it needs to grow and needs certain new capital to be brought into their company, that's what they need. Where does the money come from? And this is allowing those hotel workers and agricultural farm workers to have the means, the capital credit, and guided with whatever expert assistance they need to purchase those new shares. And that way the companies can go and buy whatever robots or AI they need.
All right, Dawn, we got some other questions coming in. Here's one from Dr. Anderson, Gordon Anderson. If everyone is owning shares of companies, laws must be changed so that dividends are paid to owners first, not to the government in taxes. Not to the government in taxes and the CEOs in stock ownership, both of which serve to concentrate capital and deny owners their share.
Yes. Can I answer? That's with this. Let's just put Dr. Anderson.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the thing is, dividend. He's absolutely right. And under the Economic Democracy Act, we would say that full dividends should be paid out to the owners. They will first be used to repay the debt. So before the capital incomes flow to the owner as spendable income, it has to first be used to pay off the lender. After that, so this is 100% of the dividends, and the corporations would be given an incentive in that they could deduct dividend payouts, and thereby they could potentially escape all corporate taxation if they're paying out 100% dividends on these shares.
Okay, great. We have a couple questions about how can this be done? How can you persuade oligarchs to be interested in changing the current system? That's a big one.
Yeah, I have an answer for that, but I've been talking so much. Maybe Mark and Dave, if you want to give this a shot.
Well, to quote a extremely prestigious leader, I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse. But I think that, again, and Dawn alluded to this, that there have to be economic incentives. One possible suggestion is that, hey, you're creating bigger, by allowing consumers to, and ordinary citizens to own capital that increases their income and increases demand for the goods and services that they sell. Okay. Second, you create a 100% tax deduction for corporate profits paid out as dividends in these classes of stock. And three, if they don't see the wisdom of the carrots, then tax the Jesus out of them.
Right. All right. We have a few minutes left. I have a question, or there's one in here about the Federal Reserve, and the question is this: is this a total radical rewrite of our system, or is it a reform of existing institutions such as the Federal Reserve? I know in the course I remember learning about the federal discount window and how that was originally designed for private, for providing liquidity for private growth, not for government debt. So is it a total radical overhaul or a reform, Dawn?
I would say it's using an existing power, making some adjustments to to Section 13, Section 2, I guess.
13.2, yeah.
13.2, thank you. And that, as Mark was saying, and I think you mentioned, Alan, that it was when the Fed was formed in 1913, it was designed to address the problem of when there wasn't enough liquidity in the economy, that you had businesses that wanted to grow and they had customers ready to buy, but there wasn't cash, that was already circulating. So what can you do about this? And this is where Kelso's understanding of money as a corporate finance lawyer came in, and that he recognized, along with other scholars, Harold Moulton at the time, that money is something, it's really a set of symbols. It's not, doesn't matter whether it's paper, gold, digital, or whatever else. Does it represent things of value, marketable goods and services, whether already produced or in the future. And you can use contracts, there's a value to them, and that can be monetized by commercial banks that can then take it to create whatever currency is needed. You would take that to the discount window of the 12 regional Federal Reserves. So it's not just one Federal Reserve bank you go to. Each of the 12 regions throughout the US was determined what were the particular economic needs, whether agricultural, industrial, or commercial. And when a business had a feasible project, a capital growth project, and didn't have the money available, they'd go for a loan. And this became a way that even if there wasn't enough existing cash in the system, new units of money could be created through the Federal Reserve System. They would have to be used for productive projects that could repay the loan that's created and the money created, and then that money is canceled. So this was a way to avoid inflation and deflation. But it stopped being used. It used to monetize government debt.
The implication of that, of money coming in and coming into existence when or loaned into existence and then going out of existence when it pays off, the implication is that this kind of financing is limitless. As long as the projects being financed meet very rigorous standards of feasibility, as they would in any situation where a business loan is being extended.
Right. And I think Dave put in the comments that we also address the problem of when loans go bad. Best intentions and plans don't always happen. So rather than requiring the borrowers, who in this case would be the citizens, to have collateral, which they don't, most don't, you create a substitute to cover risk, and that's capital credit insurance. So that's also part of this new system, and it is reforms in making sure that you have a working system that has transparency, accountability, feasibility, and making sure that there are certain standards that must be met. So I think that, yes, is to go back to the point about oligarchs or those who control the money system not being too thrilled about this radical change. I think this is where, there's just a lot of non-owners. There's a lot of citizens who are looking at the future with a lot of dread. And if they have a positive solution that will not harm the rich, other than take away their monopoly of power, you're going to have a much more peaceful world. You'll have one where more people can be happy, and that's a good thing. So you reduce the problems of poverty and war. That I think most people will say, yes, that's good, as long as it doesn't take anything away from me and could lead to a better world for my children and grandchildren. Sure, why not?
Okay, we're about at the end of the hour. There was a question about interim steps, other than a total overall using the Federal Reserve System. Are there steps taken? And the answer is yes. I know CHA has some pilot projects and, different vehicles that have been developed for using the concepts for local development, community development, land cooperatives, for example, and some others. So all this is available on the CSJ website, and you can learn about it by taking the course. So getting back to Justice University, Mark, it's up and running. We are inviting people to take the course, right? There's
Excellent. Yep, that's exactly it.
no cost. And then the more people who are out there, is this something you could take to your local community and have discussions with your representatives?
Oh, here's what I would say. And Mark, also, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt
go
that.
ahead, Ron.
That
Final comments.
yeah, the self-paced course is really a way to introduce people, give them the broad overview and the important readings. What we're encouraging are interactions, live interactions with teachers and discussions. So there's a value to this. We encourage everyone to take the course because that will help us refine and improve it. But we're also looking to get universities to start developing their own programs that they can teach in their schools, and organizations such as yours as well.
And we have a lot of very talented, smart people on this call. So if you would, yes, you can take the course and help CSJ to develop it further, giving feedback to Mark and Dave and Dawn, right? So all you great thinkers and people who care about things, you'll find it very interesting. And one important point that I want to emphasize, just understanding the social justice concept is going to be a big help in communication with the with people in the world who have a little wrong idea of social justice, in my opinion, right now. So, Mark, any final comments?
I had a bunch of them, but all of a sudden they've left me.
Yeah, it's kind of late. So,
I just wanted to respond to one point that was made about the oligarchs not being too happy about this program. There was a Michigan Supreme Court decision back in 1919 called Dodge versus Ford Motor Company. And that basically, Mike knows the details of this case far better than I do, Mike Rainey. But suffice it is to say that that case validated the so-called business judgment rule, which essentially allowed majority shareholders to deprive minority shareholders of their stake in the company. Okay, and that decision is looked upon as a defeat for property rights. So it wasn't a U.S. Supreme Court precedent, but it's pretty much that was common law in one state, and now it's probably the case in just about all of the states. So at some point the question is going to come up as to whether that decision can be overturned.
Good. Very good. Dawn's presentation on our conference is available. She goes into some of this a little bit more too with the report that was produced, and it's online at our website. Well, this is the beginning. I'm excited about this partnership we can develop further, Dawn, with UPF and CESJ. We'll try to provide some feedback for your ideas, and we have a army of people out in the field. Maybe we can work together. So,
absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Jim Edgerly. We'll get back to you. Jim's a big fan of economic democracy, and I know he has some other ideas. We can have further conversations.